All right, now that we have our scene set up and we're prepped and ready to go, let's start taking a look at how we can do some painting inside of Painter. So the first thing I'm going to do is just come on over here to the layers area, and it looks like it starts you off with a layer already pre-set up on there. So let's just grab something like that, and we'll go with their brushes. We'll just put it on the default brush, which should be kind of the easiest thing to understand. So if we start painting directly on the model, you can see we're going to be able to paint color like that. I'm just going to hit undo. I'm also going to turn on mirroring for this just so we can take a look at that. So if we want to change color, you're just going to come down here to this base color, and we can choose something like this reddish kind of color, something in there, and you can tweak each one of these parameters. So if I just color right in through here, you can see that I'm coloring with this red, and our roughness, it's got a value of 0, and metallic is a value of 0 as well. So we can change these values. We could let's just do metallic for now and take a look and see what the difference is between that right here, like this. So you can see as we crank up metallic, it's going to make it as if we're painting with some metal material there. And if we drag that all the way down and take our roughness and put that all the way up, let's paint that right next to this right in through here. And so as this thing rolls around, you can see kind of the difference that we have here. We also have height, where we can start painting with basically kind of like normal information. If we're going to raise that thing up, might have to bump that thing up quite a bit. There we go. So you can see if I paint this here, it's going to have this effect as if it's kind of raised on the surface like this. Okay. So again, with this regular type of layer, it basically is going to look at every stroke that you make, and these different settings down here are going to have an effect on things. We can make our brush size larger and smaller, just like Photoshop. There's the left bracket key and right bracket key. Those are to the right of the P key on the keyboard. And so you can see we've got this here like this. I'm going to take my Wacom pen and flip it over to the eraser, and you can see we can just immediately start erasing, and it's going to basically give us this eraser right here like that. It just is going to kind of flip-flop that. So as I start using that, I can actually erase these things out. Okay, so we can also make our brush pretty large here, so I'm just going to make this fairly large and through here, and get a nice big section of this kind of painted on and through here like this. Try to get coverage on the entire object at this point, and I think we're about there for this. So I wanted to talk about, you can obviously come through and rename this like blue paint or something like that. But what we can also do, which is kind of interesting because we've already made all these different map types, we can start to add things like a mask. So we can add mask with color selection. So this is pretty powerful. If you put this on here, you can see it's going to build this black mask, and it's automatically going to make this color selection thing here. So now we can go and pick with this color. We can actually pick where we want that blue to show up on here. And you can always go back here and keep adding to that selection like that. And we'll do pick color. If I want to add green, you can see that here. And once those are picked, you can actually take them and get rid of them by just going on through here. So I think that was pretty cool. I want to make most of this thing blue like this and through here. So I think that's the color that I would kind of want to go with. And this is building this mask for us, so we still have the ability to come in through here with our default brush that we have, and let's say this time we want to start painting with more of this kind of red kind of color, and maybe I want to make it more glossy or have the roughness kind of down in the mid value in here. And now I'm going to make my brush size pretty large through here. Let's see if I zoom out, if I can get this a little bit larger like that. We can start to kind of blend in between one thing or another. I'm going to crank this up even higher for the roughness. Just want this thing to be nice and kind of shiny in through there. So we can get a nice kind of blend in between there. And you can see how that mask is going to limit where that paint is going to flow onto. All right, so that's the basic layer type that's going to let you just update things with every single stroke. Let's look at a different layer type, and this one's going to be fill. So you can see there's a nice little paint bucket icon, and we can just go ahead and click on that, and you can see it's going to make a new fill layer. What's kind of cool about this is it's very close to a workflow that I like inside of Photoshop, which is the solid color layers, which allows you to go through, and at any point you want to make any kind of changes to color, you can set the color of something. So maybe we'll make this red kind of color that we got here, like this. And at any point you ever want to come back to this thing and then change that color, you can always revisit that layer, double click this, and then start to manipulate this. So you're never locked into a particular color. It's always kind of dynamic to where you can do this kind of information. So it works for color. It also works for the height information, which, because it's a uniform fill, you're not going to really see any kind of difference right now for that. So we can maybe just crank that up just a little bit, and then maybe see a difference here in just a bit. Then we can also, change the roughness value of this thing interactively, kind of like this, and make it the kind of sheen that we're kind of looking for. And then if you want to kind of play around with how metallic that thing is, you're going to be able to interactively change that as well. So again, all those values are live, and you can always come back to them and kind of tweak on them a little bit later. The difference is you're not going to be able to paint on this. So you see I've got a default brush, and then I've got my cursor over the top of it, and it gives us this little icon that's saying, yeah, you can't paint on that. So it's just a difference in between those different layers that you have. Let's look this time. You saw the different masks that we could do within here, where we did this masking from a color select. Now let's take a look at adding a black mask, which is going to take everything on here, and it's basically going to hide it, right? Now at that point we could start to do some interesting things where we could actually paint in on this mask. So we've got our default brush here, and we've got our grayscale, which is basically saying what do you want to paint with. If we were painting in here, it's going to give us color, but because we're painting into a mask that's black and white, we only get a grayscale value. So this means we're painting with black, which if we do something in here, it's not going to do anything because we're painting into a black mask. Now if we paint into a white mask, into a black mask with white like this, you can see, I'm going to make my brush size larger, it's going to start to reveal whatever is on this layer here that we have for the fill. So let's take a look at using a stencil. So if we come over to the alpha area, you can pick any kind of shape that you want for the stencil, and we can click and drag this over here into the stencil area, and you can see it's going to start to populate this area with the stencil, and it's going to be on a repeat. So that's why you're seeing this shape kind of repeated over and over. If we tap S and hold it down, we can actually see there's some controls for this. So S plus right click is going to zoom in and out on the stencil, and you can see that we've got this thing here. If we middle click and drag, we're going to be able to reposition the stencil. So I'm going to zoom in using S plus right click, and then S plus middle is going to give us this thing here. If I hold down S again, the left is rotate. So if we just click and drag, I'm using my Wacom tablet here, I'm holding down S and just clicking and dragging, and you can see it kind of rotates this way, and then I can use this middle mouse to kind of reposition. So if I want to get this thing somewhere right in there like that, and then now when I paint, you can see I'm going to start to be able to add this thing directly in through here like this for this mask. So I'm going to hold down S, middle click and drag up here and get a nice kind of a straight line in through here. And then now that I've got some edges built up, if I want to get rid of this stencil, I'll just go ahead and hit that X button there, and then now I can start to paint in here and kind of fill this thing up like what we see here. So I'm going to rotate around a little bit. I do want a nice edge coming across. So I can pull that thing back. Let's put it back here in this area. And let me try to just position this thing somewhere right in there, like that. And I'll paint straight across for this. And then I'll move my object in through here, like this, and then try to paint across like that. And if I want to erase, I'm going to pull this down here, and I'm going to erase. Oops, sorry. So it looks like we need to put this on the eraser, and then we need to actually pull that stencil over for us to be able to use the eraser correctly. I was just trying to flip the Wacom pen over like this. So let me actually select the thing right through here. We've got this, and now we're going to be able to use that line on here. So I'm just going to erase out like that and through there, and then I can get rid of this stencil and just keep erasing out the rest of this part right here. Okay, so that's it's getting closer to where I want this thing to be. I'm just going to keep filling this in a little bit. Not really too big on this red being through here. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. I think you get the point of how you can use these different maps and kind of paint these things. I'd probably go through and fix this section up, not liking that too much in through there. But once we have this made, let's take a look now at this part here where we can actually mask this thing out. And what we can do is make a new group for our layer. So if we make this little folder icon that you see here, let's click that and make a new folder, and we can click and drag this thing up into the folder, so now it actually sits within here. And then within that folder you can make a mask for it. So let's go ahead and mask this with either black. Black mask was going to hide everything again, and then we can use this to paint white, and we can reveal certain areas of it. That's one option for us. The other thing we could do is this. I'm going to hit undo to get us back to where we're at, and this time for a mask, let's just go ahead and click this here and say add mask with color selection. So we're back to that portion where we can actually pick and say that that part is only going to show through from whatever we picked for that section there. And if we want to pick more, we could add this to it, right? And if we wanted to pick more, click it again and keep adding to that, and we could have it go all the way across. And if you want to take those away, just go ahead and hit the little minus part for it right there like that. All right, let's talk about some really cool functionality that they have within the fill layer. So if we click on that again, you can see we've got this fill layer like what we had before. We can control the color and everything else like that. But it is possible that you could just pick from these materials in here. You can pick a material and it's going to fill with that particular material that you fill with. So maybe I can choose some kind of darker steel like this. And that's kind of cool, right? So you could give this thing a name, dark steel, like that. And again, we can also use the layer folder system. We can drag this stuff inside of here, and you can give this a name as well. And on here you're able to give your different masks, so you can do a black and white mask. You can do the mask with color. One thing we didn't look at is the add bitmap mask. So you can choose from the different things that we already have in here. So I've got the ambient occlusion. We could use that, or maybe even try the thickness. Let's just see what it looks like whenever we try this. So it's going to take that map, and it's going to mask it based off of the map. Now if you want the inverse of this, you can just click right here and tap I, and it gives you the inverse of whatever that map was. So you can see here we've got that thickness map, and it's driving that mask for this thing here. Let's try this. Let's add a different mask. We'll do the bitmap mask again. This time I'm going to use the ambient occlusion. So now you can see it's got a kind of a cool effect for that. where kind of the edges are, they don't have that material on there. And again, if we want to inverse that, we can just tap I and inverse that thing within there. So now we're getting a different material type, and it's showing up in the cracks of this thing, right? I'm going to do tap I again, do the inverse of that thing. The other thing we can do is come here, and I think we've got these different effects that we can start messing with, and we can do add levels. So we can do a levels to this, and it's going to do a levels to this mask that we have here. So if we drag this thing all the way over this way, oops, let's try this. That's what I'm needing to grab here. So this is just like Photoshop's levels. This is going to push it all the way to where it's going to make it all black, and if you push this one over here, it makes it all white, and then you can kind of crush the values in here. So you can see here's my range, so I could throw it in there if I want. And then the top one, this is the dark spectrum, mid like this, and then this is your brighter spectrum within here. So if we really wanted to kind of crank this up like this and through here, you can see we're getting these type of effects on here now for this. So it's going to drag this thing over kind of like this. I just want it to be a kind of a subtle effect on there. Alright, and then I'm going to make another layer group like this and call this plastic. Like this. We'll make a new fill layer, put this in this group that you see here, and we'll fill it with, let's try to find a plastic right here. So this plastic base, we could fill it with that, and I don't like the color. I want to start tweaking that. So you can see with these materials, there's going to be a bunch of different settings that you can kind of play with around here for this. So let's drag this thing over a little bit. So I do want this to be kind of more of a white kind of plastic like this. Immediately for that layer group, I want to add a mask with color selection. So let's pick the areas that I want this thing to be kind of plastic like that. So I think I'll do that. I'll pick another color, maybe do the green like this, and then everything else is darker. I'm not sure about that. So that's the kind of the cool thing with these this mask system is you can kind of, you know, easily change your mind about stuff and kind of pick that. And I might just leave it like this. I think it's kind of cool to have this much white on here and then this much of this darker color there. So I'm going to go back to this and kind of keep tweaking this thing out. You can see these different channels that we have. If we turn them off, you can see this is what it's actually filling with. So if we just filled with color for that thing, you can see how it's just putting white color on top of this, and that material underneath is still getting the specular values and everything else like that from that. If we do height, we can turn that on, and you can see we've got this new height information from this material that we filled with, the roughness and the metallic for it as well. So there's also things within here that we can kind of play around with some of the values on here. There's some dirt settings on here, and we can do the roughness of the plastic grain on here. So that's like this. So it's just usually kind of playing around with some of the settings on here to find the kind of thing that you're looking for. And let's see if we change roughness. I don't want to change that too much. This height position, I do believe we should be able to drag this thing down and trying to just lessen the height. Let's do this again. So set 0.5, and if we drag that down, that's what I'm looking for. I don't really want too much of that bump effect, so you can really crank that thing up, or we can get it pretty low right in through there. Let's see, so this dirt, not liking that too much, so I'll just kind of drag that back just a little bit. And this seems a little bit dark for me, this material in through here. So again, we can kind of take this color and raise it up just a little bit to kind of get it in the range that that we're looking for within through here, like that. And again, you can check this with your lighting. Hold on Shift and click and drag, and it's going to start you know, having that light kind of roll around on it like that. Let's take a look at real quick at the visor. If we wanted to make this thing a transparent material, we can go to our material type and let's try this alpha blending on here. I'm going to make a new folder, a new layer group, and call this visor, like this. I'm going to make a new fill layer, put it inside the visor, and on this one I want to actually add the opacity on here. So we're going to go to channels and then add opacity, and that opens up an opacity slot for us. So we can take this and we can drag the opacity down. You can see it's going to start to make this thing transparent. Color, I'm going to do maybe kind of an orangish kind of color. I want the roughness, I want this to be really kind of to where there's a lot of specular on it, and we can crank up metallic a bit to kind of make it have more kind of sheen like this. Height, we really don't need that, so we can just turn it off, and we can keep pushing this opacity. Now we don't want this thing to push on the entire model, obviously, so we can add this new a new mask, and we'll do the color selector. So we'll just pick, and now we've got this area within here. It looks like I also need to pick color on the back for that there. My baking it wasn't spectacular, so I wasn't too concerned about this backside. If I was really concerned about this this visor kind of working better, I might have to go through on my my color map that was generated that you see here. Maybe we can get a better look if we go to the textures and hover our cursor over there. You can see the visor's up and through the middle between that bottom part, and it's kind of orange. I could just take that thing into Photoshop and then kind of paint on it and get it all very uniform in that area. So yeah, that's something I should probably try to fix up, but I'm going to leave it for now and just kind of keep tweaking on this thing and maybe change the color values a little bit more and change the opacity to where maybe it's just slightly going through on that thing, and maybe that'll help make it look a little better. And we can crank up the roughness. Let's put this all the way here and take down the metallic. I think I'm going to push this about here, somewhere in there. So that's how you can get the transparency part of it. If we do a test, you can see it's going to try to just make it on or off for that. It's probably not going to work so great. So we can also put it back just on the regular one, and you can just see exactly into the model the way it was before, rendering kind of solid like that. So before we go any further with layers, I just want to call out that there's some really nice training material by the Allegorithmic people. Wes McDermott is a great instructor, and they've had him put together all kinds of really cool learning resources for learning both the Substance Designer and the Substance Painter. This is a really good video for getting an understanding of how these layers actually work. And eventually we'll get to the point where we're going to look at generators, where you can see it kind of puts on this edge wear and things like that. But if you want a better in-depth look at layers, go ahead and load this video up and take a look at it. I think it'll be really beneficial for you. So I'm going to just real quickly just kind of keep finishing this thing out and just make some more additional pieces for this thing. I'm going to drag this in here, and I did like this, maybe if we do something like silver on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a new color selection, and I wanted to pick these little guys in through here to kind of give them a different look. And the cool thing about this is, if this metal, if it looks good and I want to keep it, that's fine. But it is possible that I could actually change the metal type on here, and maybe I wanted to try one of these. So after it's kind of set up, it's real easy for you to try a bunch of different kind of combinations for those different pieces that you already have kind of masked off. So I think that's like more of a pure kind of chrome in there for that, like this. Okay, the other thing I want to show you guys is this, where we can do emissive. So I'm going to make a new group for this and just call it emiss, like that. And then we'll make a new fill layer and drag it in here like this. Again, for the slots that we have for our material, we got this PBR metal rough thing going on here. We need to enable another channel for that. So we need to enable emissive right there like that. And so then when we do this, this gives us the opportunity to use emissive. So I only want color and I want emissive on there. So let's make it pure red like this. So that would be our uniform color, and then the emissive is something like this that we have here. And I don't believe it's possible, you can't overdrive values, so that's something that you can do inside of UE4 that you can't do here, but you can change the emissive intensity with this slider here. And oops, let's put this back at 1. So you might have some kind of control over that. So again, after we've got this set up, we could do another mask, and we could just try this real quick. We'll do a bitmap mask, and then we'll do the thickness thing here, because this is what you could maybe use to simulate maybe some kind of like a subsurface scatter effect. And if we just kind of tone that thing back a bit and through there, and it's possible you could take your base color, and your base color could be a different color than the actual emissive that you have. But this looks, this can look pretty cool inside of here, but you definitely want to know how that's going to affect things, say if you're going to push it over to UE4 or something like that. So you need to kind of have an understanding of what the values are that it's looking for, and the other package. So I'm going to click on here and tap I for inverse as well. So again, you can always take that mask and you can kind of invert it like that. And it is possible we can take this whole layer group like this and kind of tone that thing back a little bit. Oops, yeah, so we got our emissive. Let's take this, and maybe if we take the opacity of that back, which is kind of interesting. It'll take the opacity, but we're kind of working on this base color. But you can see we're not affecting everything on here. But if we go to emissive, we can take that and we can kind of drag it down a bit on that right there like that. So we've got these different opacities, and you need to kind of check where you're at. Are you looking at the base color, or are you looking at height, opacity, emissive, roughness? So if we come here, we can go to that layer group as well and go to the emissive, and then drag down the intensity for that on there as well. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a value right in there, something like that. And let's turn on shadows real quick and just see how that's working with shadows. So we can get this on this side over here, and you can see how that emissive's kind of playing into the shadowed area. And maybe now we can take this and drop it back even more to where we just have a little bit of AO, not AO, fake ambient light on this thing. Okay, so now we can turn the shadows back off like that, and maybe we want to take our color, and then if we turn it off altogether, we could do that. We could also take our color, base color like this, and start to just kind of reduce that thing down, because it's kind of, you can see what it's doing. It's really overriding all those colors that we have on here. So if you wanted some kind of blend between that, that's possible for you to do, or you just turn it off altogether, and then at that point you're just using just the emissive for that part, and that's the only thing you're going to kind of worry about. So it's possible you could take that whole fill layer and you could use all these different channels for it, or you could just use a very specific channel for it, to where you're just using emissive on there like that. Alright, let's talk about the generators that it has. So again, I'm going to make a new group and call this edge Okay, and I'm going to do a new fill layer like this, put it in the group, and I'm going to fill it with something that's very metallic. And let's try, I think maybe we'll do this one here like this, or maybe a different color. We'll try one of these right in through here, see what this looks like. Okay, so this is what the scratches and everything else like that I want to try to get this to work on. One thing I know already is that I want to do a color selection mask. So I want to pick color, and I want to do this part here like that, and let's just do it for that portion currently right now for this. Okay, so we can take this layer that we've got and we can add a new generator, but first we're going to make a mask for it. We're going to make a black mask, so we're going to hide everything on here, and then on the mask, that's where we're going to do our generator. And then we're going to go to generators over here. We'll just do this metal edge and drag that thing over and through here, and you should see it kind of start to have an effect on the model here. We can kind of crank this stuff up and start playing with the values, and you can see what you get here. You got your grunge amount, your wear amount, so how much that paint is going to get chipped off. And really what's happening is, as you think about that paint being chipped off, it's really exposing this material that we filled it with and through there. So it's, that metal has its own kind of value. So you can imagine if this thing was painted white over the top of some metal, as the paint gets scratched off, that's the surface that gets revealed through it, right? And we could pump up wear contrast, so you can make it a little bit stronger there. This ambient occlusion masking, so you can see any of these image inputs, that's whenever we drug our images in over here, it already kind of knows that and it feeds this stuff into here. So we got our curvature weight, so you could kind of play around with that a little bit. You could also do this ambient occlusion masking, so that's another thing that can kind of get you there for the different things that are being masked out in particular areas. Let's see, this edge smoothness, I can see a little bit of change on this, but nothing too crazy. So yeah, you can see it kind of building up on the edge here just a little bit, and that's just kind of softening that thing out. If I get it really kind of low, I like the edges to be kind of beat up, so we'll leave it on something like this here. And now we've got this thing for, where we can drop the opacity of this thing back for the color and the opacity and emissive roughness, things like that. I like the amount of how much it's actually showing through, so I think that's fine. We can just leave it kind of where it's at for this one. Something else that's kind of neat is that we can simulate like kind of oil streaks and things like that. So I'm going to make another layer group, put my layer within here, and then this one would be, if I think I'm just going to make my own settings for this. So I'd want it pretty dark like this. I really don't want much sheen on it at all. I don't need height. I'm not going to do emissive. So I'll do the roughness and pull it somewhere right around there. If I crank up the metallic a little bit on it, it does give it more contrast. And I don't need opacity. Let's drop this even lower, somewhere within here, like this. So that's going to give me the thing that I want to kind of fill with the like these streaks, maybe for oil or something. So now we can just fill this with a black mask. It's going to mask everything out. And then we can come here for this thing, and then we can go to, instead of our brushes, we're going to do a particle brush. And you can see there's leaks, and we've got something like this for here. I'm going to increase my brush size, and we can start to run this thing down, and you can see what it's going to do. Let's decrease the brush size. I don't want it that thick. So we're going to have this thing kind of run down like this. And we can kind of simulate what would happen if we kind of ran some of the stuff through there like this. I'm going to turn off shadows just to make sure that's not really kind of interfering with things at all. So we've got this one. We also have this liquid stream, which will do kind of streaks like this, which the cool thing about these things are going to be actually running down the surface like this. Another one we can try is rain. So this is going to give us a lot of particles and kind of get this thing to run down on here like this. And then obviously that's really strong, so maybe we can come through here and we'll just change the opacity to where we can do this thing pretty light on here. We're gonna have to do base color, we'll have to do roughness. Maybe we're kind of taking that away a little bit, and then also metallic and dropping that thing back. So we can just try to make it a kind of a subtle effect if you want, and it just kind of depends on just how strong do you want that effect to kind of be in there. The other thing is we've got this thing that we've been kind of painting into. Let's see if we copy. I was hoping we could copy the mask. Yeah, we can copy that mask, and then I'm going to put this new mask on here like this. I'm going to paste the mask into here, and then this frees this up to where I can do something different on here. I don't want this visor thing, so I'm going to do add mask with color selection, and we're going to do pick color. I want this thing to show up on this and here and here, and then now we're saying, you know, we're only limiting those streaks to show up in that particular area. So again, we can go and change some of the values on here to make this kind of stand out a little bit more. So I don't think I want to play around with the metallic and the roughness so much as I want to kind of affect the base color. So something right in through there like that. And I'm going to turn this off again just to kind of take a look at this. And here we go. So I think that's pretty good. You know, there's more that I would like to push on this, but for time's sake, I think this is a pretty good overview of how you get to work with some of the different tools in Substance Painter. So again, I would be pushing on this thing quite a bit more if you know, I want to make something real. I could show you this example that I have here, and let me just go ahead and save that real quick. And the same kind of setup was done to make this object that's loading. Okay, and here it is. And so again, it was very similar techniques, but we've got some different edge wear and tear on there. There's not a whole lot of dirt or any kind of pass on there right now for this thing, but you know, pretty quickly, based off of the maps that we've baked out from Substance Designer, you're going to be able to use that to your advantage in Substance Painter and be able to use these different material types and have quite a bit of fun painting this stuff up. So the big advantage of this whole Substance Painter thing is that we're able to work with these different channels, and we're able to work with them simultaneously. So the only real thing to talk about is just maybe kicking out your maps from here. And so then if we come up to File and say Export All Channels, we can actually tell it where it is that we want to spit these things out to, and you can tell it what file type. because I was working with UE4, I wanted to use Targa. So let's find Targa right here and through here like that. And you can even tell it the texture sets that you want to use. So in this case, there's just a default one, so it's not a big deal. You can see that selected there. But the first one that I loaded up, I showed you had different pieces for the helmet and for the body and everything else like that. So you can kick them all out at one time, or you can kick them out at, only kick them out one at a time. So we've got that. You probably also want to set where this thing is going. So I'm going to set on the desktop here, and it was asking for an export folder, but there wasn't one there. So I'm just going to make sure we've got something. Export like this and hit select folder, and then that way we know that that should work here. Configuration, I know there's some advanced settings for how you can actually take some of these things and kind of pull them all together for like compacting your maps and things like that for UE4 or some of these other different programs. So I'm just going to do just the basic settings. I haven't tried this and through here for the CryEngine and all these different things, but I'll just do the PBR metal rough. And again, you could tell it how you're going to pack certain things within here. I'm going to just go ahead and say export these out, and then we'll take a look at what this thing actually spit out for us. We can open the folder and take a look, and you can see here's our different things that it spit out. Give it a second for this to load. And so here's our diffuse or color map. We've got emissive. We've got our height map that you see in here. We've got metallic, normal, and then roughness. So all that's going to be able to be spit out just like that. If we do this recent thing for this one, so I'm not going to save that. We'll go back to our helmet thing, and it'd be the same. This didn't really kind of talk too much about is this whole size thing. So all our paint strokes, if we are painting at 2048 by 2048 and we want to kick this thing out later at 4096 by 4096, you can take that and up the resolution of it, and it will actually recompute all the different brush strokes. So that's why you're seeing this kind of red bar kind of run across there like that. And once this is all set up, then you can go ahead and kick this thing out. So we're going to export all channels again, and we've got this export folder. I'll just say export. It'll run through and then generate everything, and then we can take a look at the final maps that were made for this. Then it would just be a matter of you taking your model, getting it into UE4, taking your maps, and then building a shader. And it should be fairly straightforward that you can take each map and plug it directly into a slot within UE4 shader system, to where you just plug in the base color, you plug in the metallic and the roughness, and you've got a emissive that you can play around with as well. Okay, and so it's done spitting out the maps. Let's open the folder and just take a look at it. And so you can see here's our different maps that we've generated from this session here. Let me pull this on over here. So we've got our color, we've got the emissive, we've got our height map, we've got our metallic, normals, and we also have opacity, and we have roughness. So very cool workflow. Give it a try and see what the results are that you come up with.